Good morning, everybody. Anthony here. Today we're going to talk about Vertigo. More specifically, my personal experience with Vertigo. I never had any real problems with any kind of an allergies or, other than a runny nose or something, but never had any problem with allergies or vertigo. Or I think the only time I heard about vertigo was in an old James Stewart movie. And bought a house in 2008, which means I moved into a different area of town. And that was the fall of 2008, or summer, that I bought the house. My wife and I. And spring of 2009, at that time I worked for Bank of America, and I was sitting at my cube taking phone calls and stuff, and all of a sudden the screen just started kind of moving around on me, the computer screen. And we had two monitors, so both of them were kind of like moving around on me, and the whole building felt like it was just spinning around. But it wasn't so much of a clockwise rotation or, around me. It was more of a one of these kind of spins. So I got off the phone and, pretty nauseated, so I went in the restroom. Didn't vomit or anything, but kind of sat there for like probably 15 minutes just wondering what the heck. Went back out, hopped on the phones. Probably another 45 minutes, and it just kept getting worse. I couldn't focus on the client or what he's talking about, or he'd ask for stuff like his account number or balance or whatever, and I was having a hard time reading off his account numbers and balances because the screen was moving around on me, according to my perspective. And oh yeah, I need some gas. We'll continue this conversation later. Right here. I can get anywhere between 100 and 130 miles before I hit reserve. Right now I'm at 101, and it's about 25 miles to work. So this motorcycle does fairly well with it, pretty much any of the octanes I've tried. It does get a little more oomph though when you put in the highest stuff in 91, whereas my 250 seems to do best on the 87 or mid-octane. It doesn't really I actually noticed less of a top speed when I put in the higher octane stuff, which is kind of backwards from what I would think. But this bike actually does better with the higher octane. So. Alright, so back to the Vertigo issue. So after taking these calls and having a hard time reading off the account numbers and stuff and just getting really nauseated, My boss wasn't in yet that day. I always had the real early shift. And he didn't get in for like another hour or so. So what I did is just sent him an email and said, hey, I'm out of here, sick. And went out to my truck, or to the parking lot, and I was like, you know what, I can't drive like this. I mean, everything's spinning around. So I had to call my brother, and he had to come pick me up. And he drove my truck, and his wife drove his car back. But anyway, ended up being out of work for like 3 months. I couldn't even walk down the hallway without bruising my arm on a door handle or something. Kept falling over. Felt like I was a 1-year-old learning how to walk all over again. And you know, I went to several doctors, and the only thing they found was what they call a negative Dix-Halpike in my right ear. So I really have no idea what that stands for, other than my right ear doesn't track motion for a certain direction accurately. But that doesn't appear to be the actual cause of vertigo. That was just something that probably happened when I was younger with an earache or something. But according to them, it shouldn't really have an effect on vertigo like I was having. So this was in March when it first hit, and about June 11th comes along, and lo and behold, I wake up one morning and vertigo's gone. And it had been constant. It was just vertigo every single day, every hour of the day. I'd sleep in bed at night, and I'd be hanging out on my wife because I felt like I was rolling out of bed. It literally felt like the bed was, you know, rotating around me. And then, you know, June 11th comes around, I wake up, and then no problem. So I tell the doctors, hey, whatever it was, it's gone. And they're like, okay, whatever. And I go back to work. Meantime, I'm having to fight with, you know, insurance and stuff, and because they want to prove anything, because there's no evidence that I have vertigo. And really, it was just my word. You know, there was no evidence that the doctors could find. So it was just up to me. Anyway, life goes merry along until about March of 2010. And guess what happens? Vertigo hits. Full on, just like it did in 2009. The difference was my brain had had a chance from the previous episode to adjust to where I could still drive and function and walk around, because my brain had learned to balance using my eyes, you know, using what it could see instead of my balance centers in my ear, in my both ears. So I'm like, oh no, it's again. Well, after about a month of that, it just kept getting so bad that I was getting so nauseated that I think I only took a couple weeks off that year. Kind of fuzzy memory on it, but went to doctors again. They're like, well, I thought you said it was gone. I'm like, well, it was gone. Now it's back again. The same thing. They couldn't figure out what it was. There were some of them that are pretty helpful, but they just couldn't figure it out. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention too, back in 2009, I was under so much stress about how I was going to pay the bills from being out of work for 3 months that I had 2 minor heart attacks. For a 27-year-old, that's pretty crazy. Luckily, no, none of them did any damage. EKGs didn't show any damage to the heart or anything. They were definitely heart attacks. And I had to just ignore all kinds of stress, you know, just ignore it. Just say, hey, if I can't help it, oh well. I had to change my whole thinking process so that I could, you know, stay alive. So 2010 goes by, same thing, March to June, and it's over, you know. So doctors still have no clue. 2011, it hit early, it hit like in December. And at work I was hearing everybody complain about how allergies were particularly bad that year and how they were hitting early and things were in bloom a little early, and I started to think about it. And also my uncle Samuel had mentioned to me one day, he's like, hey, maybe it's allergies. And I was like, yeah, right. Vertigo? Allergies? Nah. What would an allergy have to do with anything? I don't have allergies, never had allergies. But what he said, and in combination with people at work saying allergies were hitting earlier this year, and my vertigo was constantly hitting early that year, I was like, maybe there's something to this. So I started digging in on Googling vertigo in combination with allergies, and there's a lot of results coming up. So went into the doctor and it's like, hey, what do you think about allergies? Well, we could give it a try, but I've never heard of it. So gives me some tests, finds out that I'm pretty allergic to acacia trees, and there's acacia trees all over my neighborhood that I moved into. And in my backyard I had an African sumac tree, which is pretty similar to the acacia tree as far as pollen and stuff. And I was like, and they didn't have a test for the African sumac tree, but so I went out in my backyard just to see. I was like, I wonder, because that tree was in full bloom. I mean, pollen was everywhere. I mean, these African sumacs, they just get covered in pollen. So I went out there and stood by the tree, took in a few whiffs, and it was like I was having trouble breathing. Got a bug in my helmet. Was having trouble breathing. Vertigo got a little bit worse. I was like, I'll be darned. So you can bet I got that tree out that weekend. Paid someone to do it. While they were taking it out, even though I was in the house, I was having a hard time breathing. It was pretty shocking to realize that I was normal and had allergies like everybody else. I love that. So once they found I had the allergies, they gave me some liquid that I had to take over about a year to get me immune to a lot of things I was allergic to. And I also lost a couple months of work, a few months, in 2011 again, because it was pretty bad. And it was to the point that I actually quit my job at Bank of America after being there for 7 years and started my own full-time business repairing computers. I've been repairing computers on the side since 2004. So 2011 I said, hey, might as well just do this full-time. And it did well for a little while. and then it just tanked. My advertising company that I was paying buco bucks, and by the way, their name is Easy Local. Stay away from them. Completely messed up my advertising. Weren't holding up to their end of the promise of what they were going to do or anything. So $600 a month to these guys to advertise for me, and they weren't doing any better than I could do on my own for a couple hours a month. Big scam. So anyway, they messed up on a few ads, causing the ads not to go out, and rumor of mouth just wasn't enough to support the business, and normally it would have been. And that's why I started doing the business full time. I had enough word of mouth business that I was making enough to make ends meet, barely. So the advertising, I was trying to get the extra business in to make life peachy cream. Whoops. Yeah, I do have a little bit of vertigo. It's between March and June again, guys. But so back to the vertigo issue. ...2012 comes along and got another job. Now I work as a programmer, and I love it. Best job I've ever had. I also have been programming on the side too since 1999. That's always been my first love. But it was always hard to get a job because all I had was an associate's degree. Everybody wanted a bachelor's degree, even though I knew my stuff. You know, all the source code to prove it. Several programs on my website that I sell, aswsoftware.com. But they weren't interested. A lot of people were saying, well, if you go back to ASU and get your bachelor's degree, we'll hire you. Okay. I'm burned out, guys. I got a family to feed. I can't work and go to school. I mean, I was burned out when I was in school. Had a virus hit when I was a teenager. That wiped out a lot of my energy, so. But anyway, 2012 and the vertigo, not too bad. It was just off and on vertigo. Occasional days of it. So that was good. And this year, 2013, not too bad. I get my occasional days of it. Yesterday I had some while I was riding around out here, and today I have just a little bit. When people ask, well, why are you riding a motorcycle if you have vertigo? Well, as long as I keep my eyes open, my brain handles. Oh, look at that bird. Now that was cool. Yeah, my brain handles it just fine as long as I keep my eyes open. And the motorcycle, it'll drive itself. I mean, look, you let off, it'll stay up. It's when you drop below 25 miles an hour that it starts wanting to go over, but as long as it's moving faster than that, it'll stay up. You don't have to think about it. It'll just, I mean, you can lean all kinds of directions and it'll stay up for you. You know, you can go clear over here, you can go clear over here. Got a lot of range you can do before it starts to tip. That's why you have to counter steer like that if you want to do a quick lean. lights actually catch the motorcycle. I mean, they actually go green for them. It's interesting, because most don't. Green!